She has talked about human trafficking and mental advocate to the members of the parliament. She is currently nominated for Forbes 30 under education category. Yesterday, she received at a similar chambers in City of Toronto for Women's Achievers Award for Youth Leadership. Give me praise for
Please raise your hand if you're a parent. Please raise your hand if you have a daughter. Please raise your hand if your daughter is under the age of 25 or if you are a woman under the age of 25. Now imagine that girl goes to school. She meets an amazing boy through a dating app, but he goes to the same school as her, similar age. They start dating. He's an amazing guy, gives her a lot of attention, a lot of gifts. You notice that she's spending a lot of time with him, but she always comes home on time. Then you notice that she's spending a lot of time at his house overnight, so you try to confront her about it. You notice that she's very timid and shy, barely makes any eye contact. Then she moves in with him. And when you ask her why did she do that, she doesn't want to talk to you anymore. She's aggressive and defensive, so you have to let go. But when you let go, you decide to find out what exactly happened. After lots of sleepless nights, you realize that she is now a stripper in a strip club. And not just a stripper in any strip club, she's now a prostitute. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? It's uncomfortable to think when a girl that was so smart, straight A student, is now a prostitute. It's uncomfortable to think about how her life was ripped out of her hands, isn't it? It's uncomfortable. Hi, my name is Shreya Patel, and I'm here to make you feel uncomfortable. Because only in discomfort can we really see the hard truths of the society that we live in. That girl, she's not a prostitute. That girl is a victim of a harrowing crime that's affecting our society today called domestic human trafficking. Did you know that domestic human trafficking is the fastest growing crime in Canada, with 70% of the victims being under the age of 25, and 90% of them are Canadian born. International human trafficking has been happening for years, but domestic human trafficking is something that's happening in first world countries and barely anyone knows about it. Domestic human trafficking is when the whole crime happens within the country borders, and 65% of them is in Ontario, which is reported cases. Some of them are not even reported yet. The first time I came across this topic was in 2015. I was in documentary school. I was going to make it on a murder case, but unfortunately the trial got moved to a year from that time, so I had to figure out a whole new subject to cast and shoot in 2 months. I met very interesting people, actually. I met like 12 convicts and a Hells Angels hitman. I even met a girl who was in Wall Street who wanted me to follow her journey into becoming a dominatrix, which was kind of interesting. But the girl who caught my attention was this girl who was similar to my age, very shy, very timid, and all I knew of her was that she was a sex worker. But now she's trying to come back to the community. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. Let's see how the community perceives her because of her background. But she kept on disappearing on me. I didn't know where she was. Every time I would meet her, she would barely make any eye contact. She had really low self-esteem. Does that sound familiar? One stormy afternoon, she's like, okay, today I can shoot. So I took my camera by myself, got to her house in her basement, in a really dim lighting, we decided to shoot her interview, just her and I. Halfway through her interview, I realized that she was not a sex worker. I found out that she was a victim of domestic human trafficking. I had no idea what domestic human trafficking even meant. I had no idea it was even happening in front of us. But that's probably what you guys are thinking too. What does that even mean? Well, how does domestic human trafficking happen? So let me explain. Since that time, I made a documentary called Girl Up, and I've had the chance to meet so many other survivors and immerse myself in their stories. And what I found was truly shocking. The information that I gathered was that most of these pimps are the ages of 18 to 34 years old. And they can find their victims in schools, malls, buses, anywhere you can potentially think of. The way it starts is it's like a girlfriend-boyfriend type of a relationship. He'll give her everything she wants in the beginning. And once she's hooked, he'll try to pull back. And because he's trying to pull back, now she's gonna be like, oh, I must have done something wrong. What can I do to bring him back to how it was being? That leads into isolation. And from that, he'll start to implement subtle rules to see how far he can push her. First, it'll be like, hey, you know what, we should start a family. Let's get a house together. And then to get that money, why don't you work as a stripper and I'll work at the bar? From stripping, she turns to lap dances that will turn into intimate acts. Once they have enough money, she's like, okay, let's get out of here, you know? And that's when physical and emotional abuse will start. I have even heard of stories where the trafficker has made videos of the girl admitting that she's doing sex work so that he can extort her later. Traffickers even tell the victims that if you try to leave, I'm gonna kill your pet, or I'm gonna tell your family and friends and put it all over social media. Girls get getting taken out of schools and brought them before the school ends so they can go back home. This is not a nighttime job. This is a 9-to-5 job. And it's not just guys who are pimping out girls. They're also recruiting girls to pimp out other girls because a girl will always trust a girl. Did you know that there are even manuals written about how to pimp out a girl successfully? When I was interviewing Tamara Cherry for my documentary, she's an award-winning journalist, she even mentioned that some of these traffickers are, they read this book called The Game by Neil Strauss. It's a pickup artist book. I highly recommend every single woman in this room to read that book. Not that you're gonna get trafficked or anything, I hope not, but to see if some guys trying to pick you up. So domestic human trafficking has been happening for years. But only in 2017, May, a bill got passed called Girl Next Door Act. Policies and legislation still need work though. Because I got to represent my riding of University and Rosedale at the Under 35 Women's Forum at Assembly of Ontario last year, and I had the opportunity to talk to one of the MPPs on why education about this is not taught in schools, and her response was shocking. Her response was, if we teach this in schools, we're giving little boys ideas on how to traffic girls. What a shame. Because I think education can save millions of lives, and awareness is important. And that's why I think advocacy is important. And now I'm ready to make a TV series on this in hopes to reach more people and hopefully educate more people and save lives. It's uncomfortable to think that this is happening right in front of us and people in power are hiding behind their closed doors, I guess. Today on Women's Day, I urge you to educate yourself about domestic human trafficking. I urge you to feel the discomfort and in that push yourself to use your voice to be a change maker in your community. I urge you to talk to young people about it because you have no idea how many lives you might end up saving by just spreading awareness. I urge you to take a pledge with me to not only celebrate women today, but to fight for justice, for equal rights for other women too. It's time to roar against injustice because we all deserve a life led by respect. It's time to be uncomfortable. It's time to girl up. Thank you.